Okay, welcome back to our almost a never-ending series here on birds. If you couldn't tell, I'm a bird guy, and so I enjoy teaching this. I enjoy diving into um, bird anatomy, physiology, all that fun stuff. I do promise an ends in sight. I don't have too much more up my sleeve here for this. Today we're gonna talk about something that's maybe you never thought was fascinating, but I think it is fascinating, and that is courtship behavior for birds. Okay, so mating rituals, how that whole thing works, how they raise their offspring, etc. Because they're a little unique. Birds often engage in elaborate courtship behavior for mating purposes, not properties, purposes. Once again, birds have this, they can fly, and so there's a certain level of survival that they don't have to worry as much about. Because like I said, being able to fly is a huge advantage to escape from predators, to be a predator yourself and hunt. And so they can divert more of their resources into finding a mate, staying with a mate, raising offspring, those kind of things. Versus, if you're a reptile, fish, amphibian, those kind of things, you're just kind of you're reproducing and on 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 the side as you're just trying to survive day-to-day life. So things that are included in their courtship behaviors. All right. One is building nests. We should know that birds build nests, but they will do it sometimes as a way to draw in a mate. Dancing and posturing. I think we've all probably seen some Planet Earth or other nature videos of birds that are putting on a display. Think about peacocks that put on their big tail feathers. Bringing gifts. So there's some birds that will bring shiny stones, sometimes bright colored flowers, etc. Bright, colorful displays themselves. When we look at birds that are very colorful and have a lot of showy features, those are almost always males that are trying to attract a female. And then one of the more prevalent things that we maybe tune out sometimes, but is all around us as singing. Okay, so a lot of songs are sung by birds in order to try to attract a mate and find a mate, etc. There. So some birds do mate for life, and oftentimes both parents raise their young. Compared to reptiles, amphibians, and fish, birds have the um, number one. I want to say number one parenting. That's right. They divert the more resources to parenting than those other three groups do. Those other three groups are kind of like, I'll give birth to my offspring, maybe check them out for a little while, and then you're on your own. Bird parents spend a ton of their life raising their young and a ton of their time and energy too. Um, Here's a video of some grebes out in the Northwest United States that are um, doing their mating display there. It is worth the watch. So go ahead and notes and watch that as you're going. But nesting, right? Nesting is actually, it's an innate bird behavior. Right. So they are born knowing how to do it. Right. It's miraculous that that's just an instinct of theirs. Right. They get a little bit of guidance and seeing and learning from parents, but they are born being able to do that skill. They build a variety of types of nests. For the growth of the embryo, parents must keep the egg within a narrow range of temperatures. All right. So we're going to be talking about eggs today. When they are, maybe you've heard the term incubating. And so in science, if we don't have a parent bird, we have to incubate the eggs in kind of a chamber that keeps it nice and warm. For birds, they have to sit on their eggs and keep them warm. To an extent that, like, depending on the species and where you're at, even, just as long as 30 minutes or an hour of an egg being uncovered out in the elements might be enough to kill the embryo that's inside of it. So that nest keeps the heat in and insulation. And then parents also have to fend for themselves as they are raising that offspring. Here's a look at 4 different very unique nests. The one on the left is a bio weaver. I've actually seen other weaver species in Minnesota that weave almost like these like sacks that they are able to hang from. Kind of interesting. There's some of those even have like a false chamber up front, and so they are hidden hidden nest in the back. It's kind of cool. Next to it is a bald eagle that builds one of the biggest nests of all birds. Some of those can weigh several hundred pounds of sticks and different things in there. Bald eagle's nests are massive. Down below, a cliff swallow. Check these out sometime underneath bridges. You see them a lot. Cliff swallows, that is actually a mixture of their spit and dirt, and they eat the dirt and then they mix around with their spit and then they spit onto that surface and create that little cup, that little bowl for them to live in. And then on the right, the tundra swan. The tundra swan lives way up north where there are no trees. So they have to build their nest directly on the ground. And so they build more of a mound for a nest than an actual traditional nest that you and I would think of there. How many eggs do birds lay? That's a excellent question. It varies species to species, but it sure looks like, based on data science and research, that the sweet spot is 3. Okay, here's a look. Here's a graph, a histogram, if you would. And it refers to clutch size on this x-axis. All right, so that is how many eggs are being produced, and then number of species that produce that many. Okay, and here we see, I said 3. I believe that's actually going to be 2 if you look at kind of the chart. Yeah, I think that's 2. I don't know, between 2 or 3. Let's go with that. Let's go 2.5, huh? So we're seeing here that the vast majority of birds are laying between, this maybe 1 to 5 range in there for eggs. There's definitely a law of diminishing returns. If a bird lays 20 eggs, are they going to be able to raise 20 different offspring? No, absolutely not. And so a lot of species have kind of, through evolution, have kind of fine-tuned that sweet spot of what's the best use of my resources to ensure that a viable number of offspring make it to the next generation. For reproduction, all right, they sorry, got ahead of myself. Image on the right here. Let me move my face. Kind of interesting. We talk about human chromosomes. In humans, we have the X and Y sex chromosomes to determine gender. That is not the case for birds. They actually have a Z and W sex chromosome or gamete there. So kind of a little interesting. It's a little bit different how their anatomy works in that case. Other thing that's interesting is, unlike humans, birds, the female determines the gender of the offspring, as they are the ones that pass on different sex chromosomes. In humans, we should know that males determine the gender of the offspring. Okay, that's some sophomore bio in there, but so when they raise their eggs, there's some birds that incubate their eggs for a long period of time, and so chicks are born with feathers and can walk and swim, and they're kind of ready to go. Some birds choose to, or evolutionarily have chosen to, incubate their eggs for a very short amount of time. So the chicks are born featherless and helpless. Think robins. We've all seen baby robins before that. They need to be raised for a long time inside the nest before they're able to go out and do things on their own. So it's about bird production. The egg is what we're going to end with today. If we were in person, maybe I can find a video. We'll see. I'm not going to promise anything. If we're in person, we'd be talking about the incredible structure that is an egg. Everyone talks about eggs being extremely fragile. They are to an extent. However, they're extremely durable and have a ton of strength when you test them in the way that they are used in nature. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Eggs, we're all familiar with the egg shape. All right. What do eggs, we always call them fragile because when you drop one, it shatters. Okay, well, eggs in, the wild, if they fall out of the nest, they're already dead. So birds could care less. However, if you take an egg on the ends and squish it, it is extremely tough in that regard. All right. Maybe you've seen the videos where you can't crush an egg with your hand. That's pretty much true. It's over 100 pounds of force that you need to exercise in your grip in order to break an egg long ways. If you want to go sideways, it's not engineered in that regard. So long ways, it's over 100 pounds of strength that an egg can take going up and down there. And that's due with their shape. That elliptical egg shape defers the force around the egg, and so it maximizes its strength, tensile strength to weight ratio, whatever you want to call it. Here's some egg parts. We're going to talk about all those today. All right. So, good things to know here. Not necessarily for labeling a diagram, but more so for knowing what does what for feature wise. So, parts of the amniotic egg. The first part is the amnion. So if you look at it on our diagram down here, that is the liquid part going around. You're going to see it here in this brown, what color is that? Burnt orange brown color. It's the watery environment that the embryo lives in. We have a similar environment that we call our amniotic fluid in humans. All right, that's the fluid that human babies fetuses are developing in. The yolk, there's the yellow yolk sac right there. That is food for the embryo. The allantois, the pink structure, that's going to store the waste. The chorion is a membrane. So if you've had a hard-boiled egg and you peel the shell off, you'll know that there's like an extra membrane that's left. That's the chorion, and that enables gas exchange. We don't think about it a lot, but eggs are actually breathing. All right, there's carbon dioxide going out, oxygen coming in as the embryo grows. And then the albumin is the egg white, and it just acts as a cushion for the developing embryo in there. So those are the 5 parts of the egg that you should know. And that is going to wrap up our bird reproduction. And like I said, almost done with the unit here. You can be expecting a unit assessment test quiz, whatever you want to call it, very shortly here.